Uh, but the chat is going to be where you type in your questions, just because if everybody starts talking, it'll be a big mess, right? All right. Let's see. Here is what I'm going to cover. So I'm going to go over very, very briefly context of like who is EX2 if this is your first event, who am I, why am I talking to you, and then a little bit of background about VentureQuest and Greenhorn, and then the meat of the conversation will be around sort of like logistics to make sure everybody feels comfy with where the race is, what time to get here, things like that. And that's a great time to ask questions, particularly, if you have any specific questions about getting to the park, or if this is your first race or you're more a beginner, what time you get there, that sort of stuff. And I'll cover a lot of that information as I'm talking. I'll touch on sort of my style of course design. Probably more than, well, like a lot of sports, race directors typically have styles and how they design courses. And in race directing adventure races specifically, I think it's really informative to know kind of what the race director sort of has on his mind, or what he has in store for you, so to speak, when you're coming to events. So I'll talk about that in the context of both Greenhorn and VentureQuest. And then I'll talk about the race and I'll give you an overview, sort of like the order of disciplines. And I'll give you some commentary on sort of like, I won't tell you everything about length and how long things are going to take, but I'll put in some commentary around that that'll give you a little bit more information. And then obviously you'll find all the details when you get your maps and rules of travel on race day. So a little bit about EX2. EX2 has been around since 2000. I've been running the company since 2018. It was started by a good buddy of mine named Jim Harmon. And a little trivia, VentureQuest was actually the first event that Jim actually put on, and it was put on at Hemlock Overlook, even before EX2 was an official organization. So VentureQuest is near and dear to our heart, and we've been doing it for a long time. This is actually the 21st edition of VentureQuest. We've had it at various places, including Hemlock, Fountainhead for many, many, many years. I had it on the Mason Neck Peninsula for a couple of years out of Pohick Bay and Meadowood. And then I moved it up to Montgomery County the last couple of years. It's been run out of Schaefer Farm and Seneca Creek. And so, but this is actually the first time VentureQuest itself is being held at Rocky Gap. So I'm excited about that. Greenhorn. So Greenhorn, this is our 10th edition of Greenhorn. Greenhorn was first put on back in 2006. I think that was the first one. And it was actually at Prince William Park. We've had Greenhorn at various places. I actually had Greenhorn up here at Rocky Gap in 2018. I had it over at Lake Fairfax in 2019, but then it took a little bit of hiatus. My thinking for doing both events on the same day is, I think when races sometimes have sort of like varying distances, sometimes there's a little confusion of like, well, how hard things should be, or like, hey, if I sign up for a 6-hour race, and there's a 12-hour race going on the same day, like, is the 6-hour going to be hard? Is the 12-hour going to be hard? Whatever. And so my logic for doing VentureQuest and Greenhorn the same day at the same park was to really clearly sort of segment Greenhorn. Like, I designed it with the beginner in mind, right? And it's fun for everybody, but beginner in mind. VentureQuest is designed to be longer, harder. There's no magic between the 4 hours and the 8 hours. That 4 hours is just enough time to sort of get around and do lots of fun things. And 8 hours is long enough to do that and add some more challenge to it, right? So that's sort of a little context and background of VentureQuest and Greenhorn. Again, EX2 has been around for a long time. We also host trail running races. We have a couple mountain bike races, a gravel cycling event, and an Xterra triathlon. So if this is your first EX2 event, we're glad you're here. If this is your 100th EX2 event, we are glad you're here as well. I can't wait to see everybody at Rocky Gap. Thanks again for signing up. I always tell people it's no fun if nobody signs up, nobody shows up. So thank you very much for signing up. We're going to have a great time. All right. So now let's talk about logistics. This is, again, the meat of the conversation, and I want to make the most of your time. And so I'm going to hopefully, oops, this might be a little bit hard to see. I apologize, but you all have all this information, but I just want to make sure that everyone's clear on where to find everything, first of all. So I sent a couple emails. The first one went out on August 31st. The last one went out yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and cover the VentureQuest stuff first. Anytime you have a question or like, where's Andy's emails, whatever, always go to the race website, which is off the EX2 Adventures homepage. So, and you'll see them right at the top here. So this is the email that I sent out on August 31st. This is the email that I sent out yesterday. I'm going to open up this one and I want to talk about some specific things in that email. So first, schedule. So the schedule, this is again VentureQuest. So VentureQuest map pickup and check-in opens at 6:30 in the morning at Rocky Gap State Park. Now, let me show you a little bit about where you're coming. So Rocky Gap is in Flintstone, Maryland, a little bit before Cumberland, Maryland. I live in Vienna. It takes me about 2 hours to get here. You know, if you live in other parts, whether you live in Montgomery County, it'll be a little bit quicker for you. If you live downtown DC, maybe a little bit longer. But like an hour and a half to 2.5 hours is basically how long it's going to take you from really anywhere in the Northern Virginia area. If that's where you're coming from. When you get off the exit, so you take Route 68 and you get off the exit towards the park, you're going to just basically take a right off the exit. And there's basically one road leading into the park. The main decision you have to make is, do you go left towards the casino, which is kind of right here, or do you go straight into the day use area? So you're going to go straight into the day use area. There's a little guard shack right here. That'll be open this time of year. It's on the honor system. So just go right in, and we pay for all your entry fees to the park, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you have this massive parking area, literally like right in front of the beach. We stage the event out of this pavilion right over here, and that's called the Mountain View Pavilion. So you can really just park anywhere here. If you're doing VentureQuest, please know that sunrise is just a few minutes before 7 o'clock. We have twilight. We'll see light around like 6:30 or so. But just, it's probably a good idea if you're doing the VentureQuest, you're going to get there early. Bring a headlamp with you, especially if you want to do map work right away. It's still going to be dark for a while. You can get there early. We'll be there way early, but we're not going to give out maps or anything or do check-in until 6:30. Okay, so if you show up at 6, I'll say hello to you, but we're still going to be getting around together, and we do check-in and maps at 6:30. All the team members have to be present to check in. Okay, so if you're having people, drive separately, make sure everybody's there when you want to pick up your maps. Bikes and like the main TA is going to be in this field right in front of the Mountain View Pavilion. Okay, so super close. Bathrooms and such are in the main sort of building here. You just kind of walk, it's a short walk. And there's bathrooms and there's showers there as well if you want to take a shower after the race. That's good. And you can see this is Rocky Gap. So this is the beautiful lake. There's a big mountain range right here that you really can't see, and obviously the trail does go up it. There's a golf course. There's all sorts of cool stuff. The lake is beautiful, and if you've never been here before, it's really, really a great place. All right. So back to VentureQuest schedule. So 6:30 check-in. And then race briefing with me. So team captains, everybody can come, whatever you want. But probably most important for team captains, at least one person be there. That's going to be at 8 o'clock, and we'll do it right from the TA. I'll go over the course, answer any questions you might have. It's a great opportunity if you read something in the rules of travel or whatever, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, Andy. That's a great opportunity to ask, because chances are if you have a question, other people are going to have a question as well. Race starts 9 o'clock on the button. It's an 8-hour race. Everybody has to be done by 5 o'clock, and then we'll do awards as soon as possible, 5:30 or sooner. Right? I know people might be driving back, so we'll make sure we get them done and have a great celebration. We'll have lots of good food to eat after the race, and so we will feed you. And again, there's showers there if you want to take a shower before you get in the car if you're doing that on the way home. Rocky Gap does have a casino. Literally, it's a hotel. It's been a lodge forever, but they made it a casino like 10 years ago or whatever. The rooms are nice. I'm sitting in them now. They aren't the cheapest things in the world. During the week is pretty affordable, but sometimes the weekends can be kind of pricey. The campground is awesome at Rocky Gap. I've heard that all the cabins are sold out, but there are plenty of campsites available last time I checked. And it's a great campground. It's like a 5-minute drive from where we do check-in, just going around to the campground. So it's not like it's very far. Covered parking, covered map checks. Maps. So you will get a bib. You'll get a bib you put on your bicycle and on your shirt or on your pack. I don't really care where you put it. The bike one is more important. That'll go on your front of your handlebars. And there'll be one per person. So if you have team of three, everybody's going to have a bike bib with your same number on it. So maps. For both of the races, actually, you're going to have the same map. So you'll have one 11 by 17, and the scale is 1 by 15,000, and that is adjusted for magnetic declination. And then one 8 by 11, I'm calling it a supplemental map. You'll see it when you get it. That's not adjusted for magnetic declination. And there's a reason why I'm giving you a supplemental map. The main map is really great. It'll give you all the information that you need to know. The supplemental map can be useful as well. And if you happen to have more than one person who likes to navigate on the team, I'm giving you that supplemental map almost in replace of a second big map, because there is sometimes a little bit different information on that supplemental map. So if you do have two people who like to navigate, I'm intentionally giving you sort of like one big map and then one supplemental map. All the points are pre-plotted, so you're not going to have to do any plotting. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about that. Bike staging, TA, so you're going to be right in front of the pavilion. It's all super organized. Bathrooms I covered. Race start, race brief, I covered that. Question from John. We don't have GPS trackers. The park's not huge. And so GPS, in my mind, I use them, would use them if we had like a big, longer event covering massive distances, but it's so compact in the park, we're not going to have GPS trackers for this event. We do e-punching, so you'll get an e-punch. If you're not sure what that is, I'll demonstrate how to do it. But basically, it's a way to record when you get to each one of the controls out in the course. And we'll hand out an e-punch and demonstrate how to sort of connect it to the control box in the morning. Let's see, course notes, you have to stay together, everybody within 100 feet of each other. Adventure racing is not a relay, it's a team sport. So you are as fast or as slow as your fast or slowest teammate, right? So you all got to stay together. This is, again, VentureQuest. Total distance, right around 30 miles or so. Trekking about 10, mountain biking about 14, paddling 3 to 4. This is going to vary heavily depending on which route you take. And this is if you do the entire course. One thing about how I design my courses is I only have very few, if any, mandatory checkpoints. And I'm a fan of lots of optional checkpoints. So there's a sort of a general course, which I'm going to have you do. But there'll be lots of opportunities to drop points if you want to, if you're running behind or tired or what have you. And that's true in both VentureQuest and Greenhorn. So very few mandatory points. Flow of the race, I'll cover this once and I'll cover it again later, but basically it's a trek and then a bike and a trek combo, a paddle, a trek, and a paddle. This is for VentureQuest. I'll cover Greenhorn in just a second. I have one note in here about on the bicycle, you may have the opportunity to drop your bike and go get trekking points. This is true. And so if you have clipless pedals and you hate walking or running in your bike shoes, you may want to have bring running shoes with you and bring them out in the course with you. But you'll know that once you get the map and you'll read the rules of travel and you figure it out, you can just make that decision yourself. I would say in the boat, you're going to be wearing your running shoes anyway, and that trek is much more substantial after the first paddle. Anyway, but that's just a note. Tuck in the back of your mind when you get your maps. Think about like, hey, do I want to bring extra shoes or on the bike or not really worry about it? I did a lot of the trek today in my bike shoes, and so, but I'm pretty comfortable walking my bike shoes. Some people will hate it, so I'll leave that up to you. Navigation, VentureQuest specifically. This is, again, VentureQuest 8-hour race. Some pretty straightforward, some very challenging. And again, I do that because there's very few mandatory points. So I try to make the race as fun as possible for everyone, whether you are sort of a newer navigator or a more advanced navigator. So there's a little bit of stuff to make everybody happy. I'll touch on my style in just a minute at this time. So I try to give the opportunity for people to stay out on the course as long as possible. I don't design courses so that the front runners, like in an 8-hour race in VentureQuest, for example, come across the finish line in 4 hours. That's not how I design it. The downside about doing that is not everybody's going to clear the course. And so I don't design it that way. So my intention with designing a course is that we have people who are able to clear it, meaning they get all the checkpoints, but it's not going to be everybody by any means. And so I say that now, and I'll say it again during a previous brief, is there are people who are going to do extremely well overall and extremely well in their categories and are not going to get all the points. And so you run your race and do the best you can and follow your strategy, and great things are going to happen. Okay. Let's see. Points. Every checkpoint is worth 1 point. I always keep it very simple. There are mandatory points, but again, very, very few. If you skip a mandatory point, you'll be unofficial, but really there's no reason to skip a mandatory point, and you'll see that once you get your rules of travel on your map. All right. Again, we do e-punching. There are a couple of man checkpoints. We'll get your time there as well, but most of the way we do scoring is just the electronic punching. Hydration and nutrition. So this is true for both VentureQuest and Greenhorn. You're pretty much on your own. I do have water and Gatorade and probably some snacks, 1 or 2 places out in the course. Greenhorn, it'll be in 1 location. VentureQuest, it'll be in 2 locations. But and there's also water around the course. Like you're going to be going through the campground eventually. There's like bathrooms and stuff with water. So there's lots of places to get water. You should not be like traveling hours and hours and hours and not find water. That being said, you're responsible for making sure that you have what you need before you go out in that particular section of the race. I do see a couple questions in chat, and I'll get to that in just a second. Let's see. It's a hydration, yeah, gear list, super minimum. Okay, so gear list is on the website. Just scroll down to the bottom. There's not really much on there. The one sort of weird thing that you might not have is a whistle. On most backpacks these days, they have a whistle integrated in the sternum strap. You also have a cell phone and a watch. So cell phone, whistle, safety, right? But I don't really have anything else. So you're responsible for making sure you have the right clothes for the day. If it's hot, if it's cold, if it's raining, what have you, I'll leave it up to you to make sure that you have all the right stuff. Boats, all the boats we provide. Soloists will be in kayaks. Teams of 2, 3, or 4 will be either in 1 canoe or 2 canoes. We don't have many teams of 4, usually just teams of 2 or 3, but that's how we're going to set it up. If you want to bring your own paddles, you're more than welcome to. Bring your own PFD if you want to, but you are responsible for them. In VentureQuest, there is you're going to paddle somewhere and get out and do something for a little while, then paddle back. You can leave your paddles there if you want, but if somebody comes and grabs your boat and takes them by accident, like we're not going to be monitoring 50 canoes and kayaks. And so you're welcome to use them if you want to, but just know that sort of like, nobody's going to take them, right? But just be aware that it's sort of like you're responsible for it. Let's see. We got lots of food afterwards. It's gonna be great. Awards, super fun. We got some good giveaways. We go 5 deep in all our categories. Brian will be there taking pictures. Brian always takes awesome pictures and lots of good sponsor giveaways. Joey Baird, Eric Scudder, Sheehy, Brad Gilman and crew from the ODDC. And we'll have some athletic brewing there as well. All right. Let me switch over to the chat just to answer some questions. Let's see. In the cancels, we've canceled biking because of rain. I don't think so. Long-term forecast looks good. It is super, super dry. Also, Rocky Gap is much more resilient in the rain than, like, for example, the Schaefer Farm Trail System, where I did have to cancel the bike 2 years ago. So I wouldn't worry about it. Even if we get a little bit of rain, it's fine. Bike stage says, can stage food water. How many times coming back there? You'll know that once you get your maps and your rules of travel. I'll cover it a little bit when I get into I have a graphic that shows the flow of disciplines, but you'll know exactly once you get your maps and rules. Matt, can a cell phone, you want to take pictures? Go for it, man. So there is no way for me to police everyone that they're not cheating or using their GPS or whatever. So if you want to take pictures on your phone, awesome. I love it. I love capturing the moments in a race. Everybody's on the honor system to just do the right thing and not use their phone to tell them where they're at. Tom, will we paddle from start TA where we can stage our paddle, or will we need to carry them somewhere? You are not traveling any distance to get to your boat, if that answers your question. So you'll be sort of getting in your boat by the start, paddling somewhere else, and then leaving, and then coming back to that same location, if that answers your question. How technical is the biking? It depends. Greenhorn is less technical, the trails that I ask you to go on, than VentureQuest. There are technical sections for sure. Not all of it. I would say, like, if you're in the Northern Virginia area and you're comfortable riding like Fairfax or Wakefield, green blue loops at Fountainhead, Rosaryville, you'll be just fine. It's not paved, it's not like packed dirt the whole way, but it's not anything like super crazy. Can non-GPS capable bike computers be used? Yes. So we don't allow GPS bike computers, but if you have a bike computer that works by counting the revolutions on your front tire, totally fine. And I would encourage you to do that. It's a great tool to use. All right, let's see. I think that's it. So now I'd like to go over Greenhorn. So again, that was VentureQuest. So 6:30 check-in, 8 o'clock race brief, 9 o'clock race start, 8 hours, done by 5. Okay, so Greenhorn. Greenhorn starts and finishes same place. So you're going to the Mountain View Pavilion, but your check-in starts at 7:30 in the morning. So it should be light out by the time you want to look at your maps and things like that. 9:15 is your race briefing. Again, we'll do it right at the TA. And then 10 o'clock is your race start. 2 o'clock is the finish. This is a 4-hour race, and then we'll do awards around 2:30 in the afternoon. You're coming to the exact same place as VentureQuest, which I already covered. Again, parking, map check-in, all the same. Maps, same. You'll get one 11 by 17 map, and then you'll get one supplemental map, 8.5 by 11. And I did say in the email that they would not be on waterproof paper. I think they will be on waterproof paper. I think I can get it in time, and so we'll have everything printed on waterproof paper. I will have a bag for you as well, just in case. But the maps will be great, and they'll be super durable, so you don't have to worry about tearing up your map. Bibs, same thing. Everybody on your team will have a bib, one for the bicycle, one for their body or their backpack. Bathrooms I cover. Okay, course. So you have to stay together the whole time. Again, Greenhorn, just like VentureQuest, is not a relay. You have to stay together. Distances. I did the whole Greenhorn course today. It's right around 15 miles, and so that's pretty darn accurate. Trekking about 6 or so, mountain biking around 8, and paddling like 1 to 2. There's about 20 checkpoints. Again, just like VentureQuest, the actual distance that you're going to compete is depending on what route you take and whether you do the whole course. Like I said, there's only a very few mandatory checkpoints. A lot of the other ones are optional, and so you can decide, like, hey, I'm tired, or this like looks awful, I'm not going to do this section, and that's up to you. That's all part of your race strategy. Good question from William about checking in. Can you check in between 7:30 and 9 for Greenhorn? Do we have to be there at 7:30? So I would recommend you get there as early as possible. That's going to give you the most time to look at your map and your rules. You don't have to, but it's in your best interest to get there as close to 7:30 as possible, in my opinion. All right, flow of the race. Again, I'll cover this again for both VentureQuest and Greenhorn in a little bit, but basically you're going to do a trek, you're going to do a paddle, you're going to bike, you're going to trek, and then you're going to bike. So again, this is Greenhorn. So trek, paddle, bike, trek, bike. There is a bike drop on the course. What that means is that you're going to cycle somewhere, drop your bicycle, and then go off on foot. Again, I'll have the same thing about bike shoes. If you're someone who hates to trek in your bike shoes, you might want to have running shoes ready and bring them on the bike if you want to. Again, once you see the course and you see how far you're going to be going, you can make that determination yourself. I bring that up specifically in both races because you have to carry a lot of stuff in this race, and so there's going to be probably a lot of small backpacks. If you have to carry your running shoes in a backpack, you want to have a way to carry them, right? And so think about that ahead of race day. Like, if I need to carry my running shoes, how would I actually do that? Mike had a question about elevation gain on mountain bike and trek. I don't know. Let me get back to you. I can include that in my next email. For VentureQuest, it's not flat. There's some climbs. Um, yeah, it's not flat, but nothing like 20,000 feet of elevation. That's not what the park can handle, but it goes up and down. All right, navigation for Greenhorn specifically. So I designed this race for beginners, and anybody who does it, I want them to have a good time. That being said, I know that there's people who are doing the race that are fitter, are maybe have done a race or two, maybe are great mountain bikers. I also know there's people doing this race who this is their first adventure race ever. They're not good mountain bikers specifically. And so I try to design the course to give you enough options that's going to challenge everyone. I didn't design something that's going to be easy for everyone. Okay, that's not my intent with VentureQuest or Greenhorn. So I didn't design it to be easy for anybody, but I designed it to be doable, and I designed it to have options that if you're don't want to do something because it's out of your comfort zone or too long or whatever, you can just like, I'm not going to go do that section of the course. I'm going to go to this section instead, and that will be more in line with kind of what you want to get out of the event. Hopefully that's clear to everybody. So 4-hour time limit in Greenhorn. Again, it's 8 hours in VentureQuest. E-punching, same way for VentureQuest. So if you've never done that before, it's really simple. Basically, there's like a little box hanging from each one of the controls, which is just this orange and white flag. You take a little RFID dipper thing, you put it in the hole in the box, it beeps, and you move on to the next one. It's super easy and very hard to mess up. The only thing is don't lose it. Nutrition, hydration, same thing as VentureQuest, you're on your own. There is a water and Gatorade and some snacks for Greenhorn at the bike drop before you go off and do the trek. So you'll have water. The paddle starts at the main beach area and comes back to the main beach area. So you'll go through your TA. So yeah, you'll have ample time in the beginning of the race to get water. The bike leg, you'll have to carry enough to make it through. And then before you do the trek, there'll be water and Gatorade and some snacks there if you want. But again, don't rely on what we have. It'd be better to have, you can use it as part of your strategy to be able to know I'm going to get water at this location. But you got to be self-sufficient for that period of time you're out on the course. Gear is the same as VentureQuest. So very minimal, right? Bring the right clothes for the weather and that you're used to using. You got to have a cell phone on your team. You got to have a watch, and you got to have a whistle. Again, cell phones and whistles are for safety. Let's see. Good question. Can you rent a compass? You don't need to rent one. I'll give you one. I have several compasses that I will put in our sort of check-in stuff, and just ask someone at check-in. I only have about 15 of them, but if you ask, I'm more than happy to lend you one. I can also show you how to really quickly how to orient your map. It's a great skill to be able to do with a map and a compass if you're not familiar how to do that. I'm happy to come grab them before I'll show you how to do it real quick. Jim, a good question. Why do you need a watch if we have a cell phone? Cell phones run out of batteries. Cell phones should largely be turned off because you can't use them for GPS navigation. Cell phones drop and break. They drop in the water and break. Watches typically don't have those problems. So that's why I'm having you carry a watch and a cell phone. Let's see. And also one other note about the phone. The intent is you're not walking around looking at your phone, right? I told you before, if you want to use it to take pictures or whatever, I can't police everyone, but it's not designed to be out. And obviously it's no GPS, right? So you can't pull up your favorite GPS app and figure out where you are, okay? That's grounds for disqualification, and I won't hesitate to do it if somebody catches you using your phone. But phones are really designed to be turned off, like unless you want to use it to take pictures or what have you. All right, boats, paddles, PFDs, we provide all that stuff. Same as VentureQuest. Photos is gonna be awesome. Awards, we 230, and again, we go 5 deep in all our age groups. We got lots of great giveaways from Joey Baird, Eric Scudder from IFP, our friends at Sheehy, Brad Gilman, the crew from ODDC. we'll have some athletic brewing there as well. All right, let's see. All right. So I want to go over a little bit more about the flow, because I think this is going to be of interest to people, and just to make sure that it's clear to you. So oops. So Greenhorn, excuse me, VentureQuest, you're going to start again, Mountain View Pavilion, like right on the beach. You're going to go off and do a trek, and then you're going to come back to that start location, and then you're going to do a bike slash trek, meaning there's going to be opportunities to get off your bike during that leg of the race. And then you're going to come back to that same start location. So again, just make sure it's clear. You're going to start, do a trek, come right back to the main TA, do a bike and a trek of some varying distance and difficulty. You'll be gone for a while, I'm just telling you. But you'll end up back at the main TA. And then you're going to do a paddle, and you're going to paddle to a remote TA, meaning somewhere else in the park. You're going to get out of your boat, and you're going to do a trek. And then you're going to trek back to that same TA where you left your boat, and then you're going to paddle back to the finish. That's VentureQuest. Notice I didn't tell you how long things are or whatever. This is really just an illustration of kind of like the flow and what you're going to be doing in the race. You'll understand how long and distances once you get your maps and your rules of travel. All right, Greenhorn. So Greenhorn, you're starting and finishing at, again, at the pavilion at the TA. You're going to go off and do a trek and come right back to where you start. And then you're going to go in the water and do a paddle, and you're going to paddle out and then paddle back again to the main TA where you started. Then you're going to go off and you're going to do a bike, and you're going to bike to a remote TA somewhere else in the park. You're going to drop your bike. You're going to go out and do a trek. You're going to come back to that same TA, and then you're going to bike to the finish. So that's the flow for Greenhorn. And again, you'll understand the specifics, the distance, once you see your rules of travel and your maps. Okay, does anybody have any questions? We got one, Nick. Where do we stage your bikes? So there'll be bike racks and blue fencing. This is the X2 Adventures on it. It'll be really conspicuous where you put your bikes. So don't leave them in the car, bring them over to the TA. You can also put like extra water, food, whatever underneath your bicycle. That's sort of like your spot to leave everything. You could go back to your car. Technically, it wouldn't be a big deal, but it's easier and more convenient to have everything inside the TA. It's a good question. All right. That is all I wanted to cover. So, Charles, can we keep a standard 27-gallon bin? No, you don't need that much stuff. You don't need a 27-gallon bin for this race. Pair of shoes, some water, some food. That's all you need. If everybody bought a 27 bin, they don't fit underneath the bike racks very well. So put them in a little bag or something. That'll be just fine. Rob, so after Trek Bike in VentureQuest, we'll be relieving our bikes at the bike drop. Yeah, so your bikes will come back to the main TA, actually. Yeah, you'll leave your bikes there. Yeah, and they'll be watched and safe. So you don't have to worry about that. My teammates would like to know what kind of pizza. So we get Papa John's pizza. We have a long relationship with them. They're very dependable. We'll have varying flavors of pizza. So we get cheese. Generally, we get cheese, sausage. We get a couple of vegan, so no cheese, no toppings, no meat. Pepperoni. Yeah, so we have a varying supply. Bathroom. So bathroom situation. So there's a bathroom at the start with showers. There are bathrooms in the Rocky Gap campground, which you will be going through at least once during the race. And those are just like in each of the campground loops. There's just like standard bathrooms in there that if you like have emergency need to go. There is a porta potty at the bike drop location for Greenhorn. So there are lots of bathrooms around this race. I think you'll be more than notes, more than others. There'll be plenty of bathrooms. VentureQuest, will we have access to the cars at the start for TA? If you want to go back to your car, there's no reason you can't. That's up to you. But your bikes will be in the TA. I'm not going to have you have your bikes at your car. Your bikes will be in the TA. That way we can watch all of them and they're all together. If you want to keep other stuff in your car, that's totally fine. When you see the venue, if you've never been here before, it's very conducive to having sort of everyone there together inside the TA. But the cars are not very far away. How many participants? We got about 250 total. There's about 110 in Greenhorn and about 150 in VentureQuest. Along those lines, if you know anybody who wants to race, we have a few more boats available. That's usually the limiting factor, is how many boats we can get delivered to the park. And so if you know anybody who wants to register, we do have space if somebody wants to come out. But I would have them do it quickly just to make sure that we have enough boats for everybody. Mr. Darling, I will consider Hawaiian pizza, my friend. Oh, Jane, great question. Any particular order for checkpoints? So that'll be in your rules of travel. Some legs, it'll say, do these checkpoints in order. Other legs, it'll say, do these checkpoints in any order. In both of these races, there'll also be the type of checkpoint that you can get more or less anytime during the race. If that doesn't make, you'll understand when you see the maps and the rules. But within a leg, it'll specifically say, do these in order or do them in any order. But again, there will be some checkpoints that you'll have the opportunity to sort of get whenever you want, really. Let's see. All right. Do you have a recommendation about backpack size? You don't need to carry a lot of stuff. If you are a person that wants to carry your running shoes with you, it just has to be big enough to either carry your running shoes inside your backpack or on the outside somewhere. Water, a couple hours worth of water is fine. Again, you'll have opportunities to refill water in both races in at least one location. So you don't have to carry like 8 hours worth of water with you. If you're doing VentureQuest, you don't have to carry 4 hours worth of water with you if you're doing Greenhorn. So I don't think, again, I don't think you need to have a huge backpack. Yeah, Dave had a great thing, 20 liter. That's plenty big enough. Coffee available at the start. There is a wonderful Love's gas station right past the entrance to the park that's open 24 hours that has a wonderful assortment of coffee. So we won't have it this race for everybody, but there is coffee close by. That's your jam. Oh, great question. If you could see my legs, so Tom has a question about thorniness. If you were doing Greenhorn, I wouldn't worry too much about vegetation, meaning like what you're going to be running through. VentureQuest, though, on one particular leg, I wore shorts today and my legs got tore up pretty significantly. So I would say it's a great idea to have pants. If not, you wouldn't need them the entire race, but I think for one particular trekking section, it may make you faster to have something on your legs. Rob, good question. Gatorade also available where water is. Yep, you'll have Gatorade there. Yeah, so water and Gatorade. I will say, bring your bottles full. Like, there's a bathroom you can fill up with water or whatever. But come with your water bottle / backpack, whatever you're using for hydration. Fill with whatever you want in it to start the race. That's going to make it easier on you. Give you one less thing to do in the morning. It also covers the situation where like all of a sudden the water is a weird situation here or something, but there's lots of water. But again, try to come with everything full. It just makes things easier. Dan, about poison ivy. I haven't, Dan asked a question about poison ivy. There is poison ivy for sure. I, for right or wrong or for unfortunate or whatever, I don't really notice it too much. And I don't get it really too badly. So I don't like watch for it as much as other people. do, but when you're running through the woods, I would say there's probably poison ivy. Not like crazy everywhere. If you're doing VentureQuest, the one trek, I would be more concerned about like low vegetation thorns that are going to eat up your legs than I would about uh, poison ivy. Let's see. Chiggers, possibly. Don't know. I'll find out tomorrow. um, yes, you can definitely bring water and electrolyte tabs. That's a great idea. Noon is great. There's variations of it. Let's see. Dave has a question. Would you recommend a real mountain bike or a hardtail with good tires would do fine? So I will tell you, this is personal preference. If I was doing this, so I have a hardtail mountain bike and I have a full suspension mountain bike, and they're both excellent. They're not like a downhill full suspension. They're mostly like cross country style bikes. For this race specifically, if I was doing VentureQuest, I would bring my full suspension mountain bike. Rocky Gap has rocks and again, nothing crazy, but there's roots, and I'm getting old. So if I can ride my full suspension bike, I'm gonna ride my full suspension bike. But that's me personally. For 15 plus years, I was adventure racing and I didn't have a full suspension bike. So you ride what you got, but if you had a choice, um, and you like riding both bikes, me personally, I would ride the full suspension bike, but that's just me. I'm getting soft in my old age. Dave, you can bring a gravel bike. That's cool too. All right. Questions. I think I got everybody. Anybody have any other questions? Before I open up to more generic adventure racing stuff. Questions? Going once. Going twice. Let's see. How do you stay so awesome so that you can do the fun things all the time? We'll have that conversation over beer, Matt. Let's see. Alan, looking forward to seeing you and the kids. It's been great. If anybody wants to stay on for a more generic adventure racing conversation, type that in the chat. I'm happy to cover it now. If you don't want to stay, that's okay too. If nobody wants to talk about general AR stuff, I'm not going to talk about it. I do have something on both websites for VentureQuest and Greenhorn. There's a clinic from last year, which I cover that information if you want to give that a read or a look. That covers like maps and rules of travel and all that sort of stuff. If you want me to cover it with you now, I'm more than happy to do that. But if I don't get any takers, I'm not going to do that. And you can just put it in chat if you want to. Again, it's okay if you do. If you don't, that's okay too. Awesome. All right, so we got one tips, tricks on nutrition planning. Okay, that's good. All right, so let me talk about nutrition. So a couple things. So I have done the last 3 to 6 hours, never wanted to do another 2 hours. Curious. Okay, so with nutrition, couple of things to know is you want to have food that you're going to like to eat through those 8-hour periods of time. Your body is only able to absorb somewhere between 150 and 200 calories an hour. It varies for everybody, right? So you want to have enough little snacks that you can eat sporadically to keep your energy level consistent. A good practice is not like eating nothing and then like at hour 7 eating like 1,000 calories, right? You want to sort of spread out your caloric consumption as evenly as you can. It's going to be harder if it's hotter, right, or colder, whatever. It's just harder to eat in those particular times. So I would say, pack things that are easy to grab, easy to eat on the when you're walking, running. Biking is a little bit harder, but like little bars or jellos or something are always easy to do. And I'm a big fan of a variety of things, even in an 8-hour race. It's long enough where, by hour 7, you might not want to eat another gel like ever, right? Whereas you might be able to stomach that stuff in the beginning of the race. The other thing to think about is like in an 8-hour event, if you eat, say, like an hour or two before the start, something substantial. Um, that'll get you sort of through the first part of the race with just a couple of snacks. And so, I try to eat something, right before the race starts, 200 calories, like right before the race starts. And that will kind of get me through the first hour and a half. And then I think about, okay, when am I going to eat again? And so then I just sort of nibble sort of 150, 200 calories at a time, over the next, in this case, several hours of the event. Um, you don't need huge volumes of food, and you want food that's going to be easy to eat and digest. That is very specific to everybody, to anybody who's doing the event, right? But you know, feel free to bring stuff like peanut butter jelly sandwiches, or cut them in half or quarters. Nuts are a great snack if you can eat nuts. Gels, obviously, a zillion different types of granola bars, potato chips, and anything that you think you're going to want to eat throughout the race. But if you think you're going to eat, like, if I say 150, say 100 calories an hour, just to make it easy, in 8 hours, that's like 800 calories. So somewhere between like 800 and 1,500 calories you might need at the most in an 8 hour race. That's not that much, in terms of like volume of food. So one thing that if you've never done it before is like look on the calorie content on the back of whatever you're eating, or take a rough calculations if you're getting like a handful of nuts or a peanut butter jelly sandwich or whatever, and keep like the total calorie count like in mind. And you could say like, okay, 200 calories an hour times 8 hours, that's 1,600 calories, like max, what I'm going to need. Most people have a tendency to carry too much stuff with them in adventure races in general. Um, so, if you put your food together and you think like, oh my God, I have 4,000 calories and cans of beans and all that, you don't need all that stuff. So count the calories, keep that sort of benchmark in mind, and you'll be just fine. Uh, yeah, I don't like the good, gels. I mean, if you like them, they can be okay, but if you don't like them, you can't stomach them, they're not great. Um, Salt consideration, yeah. It depends how hot it is. You can get salt either like synthetically, like through, salt tabs or whatever, electrolyte tabs. You can also get it through food, right? Just salty food. You can sprinkle some salt on normal food that will absorb into your body as well. Whatever you think you're going to want to eat and put in your mouth. Yeah, Dave makes a great example of something sweet, something salty, and something that has protein in it. Protein is more important in the longer races you get to, but yeah, it's protein that you just sort of can crave it at times. And so I agree with you, Dave. I think it's a good idea to have a variety of food. It's also a great idea to have teammates that bring good food, because then you can still eat their food. All right, any other questions? Awesome. Well, I'm looking really forward to seeing everybody. I'll have another few emails going out over the next week. Um, I can't wait to see you at Rocky Up. We're gonna have a blast together. And thank you so much for signing up, and thanks for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions like over the next week, my phone number is in those emails. You can just call me, send me a text, send me an email, and I'll help you out as best as I can. I want it to be a great experience for you. Again, thanks for signing up, and I can't wait to see you. And with that, I think we're done. See you, everybody.